Good afternoon. Kalispera. My name is Sofia Karakeva and I am the Chief Marketing Officer at DataScouting. We are delighted to provide this webinar as part of the AMEC Measurement Month, and we embrace this opportunity to showcase you the value of having the right tool to measure TV sponsorships. With us today, we have Mr. Stavros Vologiannidis, founder of DataScouting. The webinar will run for approximately 30 minutes and we will leave some 10 minutes at the end for your questions. You can send your questions during the webinar through chat. Barry Legater, the CEO of AMEC, is on today's call and I know he will be pleased to help contribute to the discussion. Before we start, allow me to briefly introduce DataScouting. We are a software company. Sorry for the delay. We are a software research and development company specialized in creating intelligent, powerful, and cost-effective solutions for media monitoring. We have solutions for print and broadcast monitoring that include, among others, news and advertising monitoring, logo detection, and music tracking. In the past year, we have invested heavily in library information systems, and we have been awarded several library projects, including the Library of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, the largest in Greece. We specialize in digital convergence services, documentation, metadata, and information retrieval. Our software and hardware solutions include speech-to-text technology, software to manage big data, and solutions for storage and archiving. We joined AMEC as an associate member this year, and we are very excited to be part of this organization. This webinar is organized as part of the AMEC Measurement Month. For those of you who are not familiar with this annual feature, let me briefly outline that it started as a measurement week in 2014 and it has evolved to Measurement Month this year. The AMEC Measurement Month is an important initiative that stands for best practice, stimulates awareness of the Barcelona principles, and delivers on all the latest thinking on evaluation of communications. This year, Measurement Month has grown. We have seen 50 free events held in North and South America, Europe, Asia Pacific, Africa, and this year for the first time the Middle East. AMEC Measurement Month events will run until tomorrow. Please visit AMEC's dedicated page for more information. And if you would like to tweet during this webinar, please include hashtag AMECMM. Moving on to the first slide of our webinar, let me start with this quote by Simon Chadwick, Professor of Sport Business Strategy and Marketing at Coventry University. Sponsorship is one of the world's most important forms of marketing. There is value to getting brand visibility on screen, especially for new brands that are trying to generate awareness. There is no doubt that the reach and impact of television sponsorship offers companies an attractive proposition in building the crucial awareness that reassures consumers about a brand. The commercial value of television sports events is their ability to appeal to the committed sports fan and to the peripheral sporting viewer who becomes interested partially due to the excitement TV is constructing around the event. However, airtime and sponsorship do not come cheap. So how do companies ensure that their television sponsorships are delivering the kind of value that ensures the channel remains a worthy investment? When you consider that 30 seconds of airtime coverage during the Super Bowl cost brands $4.5 million, it is clear that high-profile and high-budget television sponsorship is still regarded as a valuable channel for brands to operate. However, it remains a challenge for brands to measure the true value of their television sponsorship. Do we know how much is it worth to sponsor? Do we know how to measure it? And do we know what should we measure? Surprisingly, companies still have difficulty answering such questions, and the majority of them do not have a system in place to measure sponsorship ROI comprehensively. With this in mind, let us take a look at the why and how of good sponsorship measurement. How do I link a sponsorship to the measure that matters to executives? What is the overall objective of the portfolio, the target demographic, which stages of the consumer decision journey sponsorship can support? Which factors should brands consider to determine the ROI of a sponsorship? What should be measured? And what technology or tools to use to assist measurement? Again, using a quote by Simon Chadwick, sport is the major recipient for sponsorship in spending each year. Sponsorship spend is constantly growing, and 70% of this goes on sports. The rest 30% is split among entertainment, causes, arts, events, and associations. According to PricewaterhouseCoopers, in 2014, the global sports sponsorship market was worth around $57 billion. The worldwide revenue from sports sponsorship was around $45 billion that same year. In Europe, in the past 8 years, sports sponsorship has risen by 40% to be valued 4.4 billion euros. So why sport is the single most lucrative area in terms of sponsorship deals? First of all, because sports is passion. 80% of home team fans talks about their team every day during the season. Because 74% of the global public enjoy it. Sport inspires, it is entertaining, it is emotional, it lets people believe in the impossible, it engages people's mind, it is an adrenaline driver, gives a place in history, and validates our competitive nature. And finally, because 9 to 10 consumers would buy a product that is linked to sports, and especially products and services that are connected to their team. On the first two places on the list with the 10 biggest sports events worldwide, you can see here, we have Olympic Games and the FIFA World Cup. How do these two major sports events stand as regards TV exposure and sponsorship? The Sochi Winter Olympic Games in 2014 marked a turning point in the history of Olympic broadcasting, with more hours of coverage than any previous Winter Games and more channels around the world. In total, more than 48,000 hours of Sochi coverage was shown on television around the world with 464 channels, far exceeding the 32,000 hours and 240 channels that were shown of the Vancouver 2010 Winter Games. Some 2 billion viewers watched the Sochi Games in 2020 countries and territories around the world. FIFA made some $1.4 billion from sponsorship deals with 20 major companies during the World Cup in Brazil. That was 10% more sponsorship revenue than from the last World Cup in South Africa. So can a sport event beat these figures? It seems that the Rugby World Cup, currently being held in England, has already done it. It started 10 days ago and it is already bigger than any previous edition, with record crowds, record TV audience and record TV sponsorships. Commercial revenues have increased by 60% since the last Rugby World Cup in 2011 and are expected to be more than £240 million by the end of the tournament, of which TV sponsorship contributes £150 million from contract to show the Rugby World Cup in over 200 countries. This is 15% more than 4 years ago. According to audience figures provided by ITV for its coverage, some 3.2 million people watched the opening 8 matches, up from 1 million at the same stage in 2011. Companies use sponsorship for a variety of reasons. In the previous slide, we saw that most money is being spent on sports. So here we will focus on the key reasons for sponsoring sports events, starting with brand corporate awareness. Companies seek to put a name in front of the consumer so that it will give it favorable recognition when exposed to other specific marketing messages. Stories that consumers want to share always make a difference, and Coca-Cola took advantage of the need to nurture stories and nailed it at the South Africa 2010 FIFA World Cup with the goal celebration campaign. Moving to brand corporate image, it attempts to create a personality and style of a product which distinguish it from another in the market and allows, for example, premium pricing. We can see this in the example of Hublot, a luxury Swiss watch brand and in fact the first luxury brand to sponsor soccer. Hublot chose to go a different direction, be innovative, and managed mass appeal with the Say No to Racism sponsorship at the UEFA Championship in 2008 by promoting a cause instead of its own brand. Then we have customer relations. To increase positive recognition among targeted group providing unique, exceptional, and emotionally appealing message. Procter & Gamble played heavily with the Thank You Mom sponsorship during the London Summer Olympic Games in 2012 and at the Sochi Winter Olympic Games in 2014. Community relations. Sponsorships can show that a company cares about its community and it is prepared to invest in its future and the welfare of its citizens. In 2008, Abu Dhabi United Group took over Premier League football team Manchester City. Their strategic aim was not to make money out of the club, but rather to use the club's media profile as a space to promote Abu Dhabi as a tourist destination. And finally, employee relations. Sports sponsorship can encourage company pride and loyalty to support the attraction and retention of staff. Let us now take a look at what brands want. Goal setting and measurement are fundamental to communication and public relations. Barcelona Principle 1. There is business in sports content. Some of the most important factors brands should consider to determine the ROI of a sponsorships are how well the property fits with the brand story the company is trying to tell. Certain brands are drawn to certain sports as they serve different kinds of market appetites in terms of size. So most sponsors are looking for sports properties that can make a valuable and quantifiable contribution to their brand. To do so, the sponsorship must have a good fit with the brand's personality and ideally be unique to that brand. And if they can offer big enough incentive, they can even arrange an exclusive sponsorship. As an example, since 1984, Visa is the only card accepted and is the exclusive payment service for all Olympic venues and ticket orders. Potential business and cross-promotion with other sponsors. Most of the times, many sponsors will compete within the same event. For example, at the FIFA World Cup in 2010, Adidas was sponsoring the Spanish team, who was playing against the Puma-sponsored Switzerland team. Sponsors seek activities that are unique, enjoyable, and memorable, and provide occasions to build the brand and develop sales. Moving to number 3 is impact on consumer perceptions and purchasing behavior, from awareness and exposure to changing the way people feel about a brand or actually driving revenues from products and services. Sponsors want the sponsorship to provide an opportunity to communicate with the consumer in the setting where he is enjoying a quality leisure time experience, ideally making the consumer more favorably disposed to the sponsor. Sponsorship is a process whereby a sporting goods company associates their name with a particular sporting event, league, team, or athlete. For instance, the official NFL ball is a Wilson, The official Premier League soccer's ball is a Nike, and the official NBA ball is Spalding. And finally, number 4, type and quality of PR coverage the sponsor obtains around the property. Even though our focus here is TV, and that meaning logo exposure and TV audience figures, it is important to integrate with other channels, such as editorial coverage or social media, in order to understand how a sponsor may be benefiting the community, fans, or the actual event he is sponsoring. Brands know sponsorship are working. Sponsorships help brands amplify what they are already doing. They help them be more seen and more remembered. But for some reason, something is not working, and this substantial marketing investment is not supported by a powerhouse of research and measurement when it comes to determining its effectiveness. So let us take a look at some statistics provided by the Association of National Advertisers. Only 35% of marketeers consistently measure the impact and effectiveness of their sponsorship activities. A full 25% of marketeers do not gather, analyze, or use any data at all in their sponsorship decision-making, choosing to work on gut instinct alone. Of those that do conduct some form of measurement, only 47% have implemented a standardized process for sponsorship measurement. When carrying out sponsorship measurement, only half of marketeers make any attempt to isolate the impact of sponsorship from their other marketing initiatives. Yet nearly 80% report that the need to validate sponsorship results has increased significantly in the past 2 years. They are missing or cannot afford the right tool or technology to support measurement. So why do you need to measure? The effect on organizational performance can and should be measured where possible. Barcelona Principle 3. Sponsorship is complicated, but it is inherently measurable. More than 100 US companies have sponsorship budget in excess of $15 million, and the largest sponsors such as Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Nike, or McDonald's spend well in excess of $200 million per year. Given the size of these investments, the rationale for measurement should be obvious and includes the following. Corporate governance. Like any other company expenditure, the sponsorship spends needs to be clearly justified. So doing the research that identifies the causal links between the investment and corporate KPIs and/or financial returns is a critical corporate governance function that marketing is obliged to undertake. Protect your budget. If you want to protect your sponsorship budget for next year, set about proving the value that it is providing this year. Maintaining a consistent budget is particularly important for sponsorships associated with popular properties where there are considerably more sponsors, many of whom might have been around for decades. In these instances, it may take years of investment to break in and gain consistent awareness and behavioral change with fans. Prioritize opportunities. Most companies spread their budgets between a number of sponsorship properties in order to maximize reach or target different audiences. Effective measurements allows you to assess the relative merit of each sponsorship as it relates to corporate goals, allowing you to make informed decisions about which sponsorship to maintain and where to prioritize budget. Renegotiate power. Perhaps the greatest value you will see from effective sponsorship measurement is when it comes to renegotiating your sponsorship contract. Having detailed data regarding what works best for your company provides you with far greater power, allowing you to focus on the opportunities that matter and negotiate a cost that you can confidently predict will deliver an ROI. So what success looks like? The importance of sponsorship can be seen in another statistics, that of Manchester United, who announced this month they expected to break a club in 2015-2016 by achieving a record £500 million in revenues, including a £750 million Adidas sponsorship deal running over a number of years. Getting down to business and looking at what you should be measuring. Measuring communication outputs is recommended versus only measuring outputs. Barcelona Principle 2. Measure outcomes, but make sure you tie them to outputs and make them work together. So measure your media performance and correlate that to what the sponsorship produced in terms of the objectives you have set. Measurement and evaluation require both qualitative and quantitative methods. Barcelona Principle 4. When it comes to TV sponsorship, there are more quantitative than qualitative metrics to measure the value of TV sponsorship and metrics that will tell you how visible your sponsorship was. So for example, look at logo exposure. How many times your logo was seen on the screen? Event attendance. Look at potential audience impressions. Impressions are a gross audience figures, a gross sum of all people potentially exposed to a sponsor's message or sign counted for each potential exposure. And watch at program performance, TV ratings. The results and the highlights of a sporting event are broadcast on different television news and shows. From there, you need to look at other metrics and comparative data as well in order to measure and optimize brand association and consumer commitment. For example, look at advocacy. The audience definition should be relatively obvious, and in sports you are looking at fan classification and especially and specifically defining the avidity of fans. Avid fans are those who are deeply involved in the sponsorship property through regular attendance or viewership of events, as well as other engagement like online and social media. Casual fans who have more of a passing interest, and finally non-fans are those who have no interest at all. Then you should be looking at awareness. How many people can actually name you as a sponsor? For example, some 20% of avid fans are able to recall even the largest sponsors within an event. Event attendance, you are looking at potential audience figures. Brand preference, you want to see what is changing perceptions. Attitude, what is changing behaviors. When you are looking at opinion, you want to look at the discussion volume. For example, the discussion that takes place on social media. And finally, sales volume. Where did it come from? Did you see an increased website traffic after or during the sponsorship? Have you noticed online purchasing increase? Measurement and evaluation should be transparent, consistent, and valid. This is Barcelona Principle 7. And in this case, determine who is going to do the measurement. And if you are looking for the data to deliver actionable insights and have credibility with your leadership, maybe you should consider hiring a team of independent professionals. And now we will take a look at how to power and support the measurement of TV sponsorship. Sports broadcast events are attracting the most live viewers. Live events are very rich in possibilities for brands as they are the ones that we watch together. Sporting events create opportunities for great TV exposure, showing sponsor logos on jerseys, banners, equipment. Such exposure creates brand familiarity and helps the logo stand out from competitors. For example, sports apparel and equipment companies like Adidas or Nike are 6 times more likely to sponsor professional soccer than the average of all sponsors. TV is becoming a bigger and bigger part of sponsorships. Most consumers do not go to games anymore. They are watching on television at home in 60-inch plasma. Most games are available on cable service or satellite provider. And this is a fundamental change that teams and leagues think about. How consumers are engaging with sports now. Sponsorship is about how do you put your brand in place where you are in the intersection of passion and connection, and you are able to communicate with consumers on a level where they are expecting it, it is organic, it is authentic. But how does it work in practice? A representative for Europcar, a Paris-based rental car company that was the title sponsor of a French cycling team, said in a Wall Street Journal article after the team competed in the Tour de France that the company was calculating every second that our logo is seen on the screen, and there is no doubt this tour has paid for itself. Europcar paid an estimated $6 million for the cycling sponsorship. Some would argue that measuring logo exposure is not a good metric, but the truth is that the number of appearances of a logo, its position, size, and duration provide indexes and statistics that are used for marketing analysis. These statistics are in fact used by the sponsors to estimate the number of TV viewers that notice them and then evaluate the effects of the sponsorship. Finally, these parameters can be used as a feedback for a sponsor to check if the visibility of a logo justifies its sponsorship engagement. The visibility of a logo can be seen as an indication of the expected revenue for the sponsor. At DataScouting, we believe that by knowing exactly when a logo is running in almost real time is a significant step towards effectively measuring TV sponsorship. In the next months, DataScouting will launch a new version of Media Scouting Broadcast, empowered with logo and advertisement detection to assist companies effectively monitor their sponsorship on TV. Logo detection has been designed to automatically detect and recognize logo and trademarks in TV, eliminating the time of manual brand detection. So, logo detections allows brands to watch time. It is absolutely vital that you are able to track the length of time that each viewer spends watching your brand. Being a marketeer, every second of your brand exposure is vital, and you want your audience to watch it to the end. How visible the sponsor was. That helps brands quantify the amount of broadcast exposure their sign is getting during broadcast. Based on that, a brand can negotiate with the broadcaster to change the color of the sign or change the location of the sign to make sure a brand gets more exposure during the broadcast. Then engagement. Combined with watch time and post-viewing activities, this can help you determine if you are getting through the right people. And finally, retention. Slightly different than watch time, audience retention is an overall measure of an event's ability to retain its audience. If it's a major event with massive coverage, for example, retention will tell you that. And with that slide, we have come to the end of our webinar. And before we pass to questions, I would like to briefly introduce AMEC in case we have in the audience people who are not familiar with AMEC, being the International Association for the Measurement and Evaluation of Communication. Being the voice for public relations, research, and measurement, AMEC provides a forum and international network to communication professionals and PR specialists to share knowledge and best practice about communications research, media intelligence, and insight. AMEC has members in over 48 countries around the world. And earlier this month, AMEC launched the updated Barcelona Principles, being a set of 7 principles that provide a framework for effective public relations and communication measurement. In this presentation, we used 5 of them. You can find more information regarding the Barcelona Principles on AMEC's website. And AMEC, I would like to remind once again that AMEC Measurement Month events will run until tomorrow. And again, you can find this information on AMEC's website.